Hi, I'm Nicholeen Peck, and I teach parenting all over the world through the lens of the principle self-government. And in this video, we're talking about eye contact issues with autistic children in regards to the 4 basic skills. So in this video, we're going to talk about why eye contact can be a problem for children with ASD or autism. And then we're going to talk about the 4 basic skills and what we can do with the 4 basic skills if eye contact is a problem. So people who have ASD or autism have different activity in their brains, which makes certain things more heightened and other things harder to do. Right? Just because of the way that the brain directs itself for them. So eye contact has been studied with people with ASD, and they have found that while doing eye contact or trying to perform eye contact, the person with ASD has a lower brain function in the area of the brain that connects the eye contact with what is being said for the person. For most people, if you look at somebody, it makes you hear someone better or recognize what they're saying better. For a person with severe autism or ASD, that person can struggle to actually hear you if they're looking at you sometimes. But that does not negate the need for connection when you have a person who has autism. So the 4 basic skills, if you're familiar with them, are following instructions, accepting no answers and criticism, accepting consequences, and disagreeing appropriately. And every one of these 4 basic skills, the very first step is to look at the person. Now, there are autistic organizations who actually refer to teaching self-government as an approved methodology for teaching autistic children because it's so predictable, because it actually helps with connection and communication, which is oftentimes needed with autistic people. So that is something that is surprising maybe for some people when they see that, okay, we're going to learn these 4 basic skills, we're going to teach these 4 basic skills to our child, and the first step of every one of the 4 basic skills is to look at the person or the situation. How can that be approved for teaching an autistic child? Well, it's not necessarily about really looking at the person as it is establishing a connection with the person. So there are other ways to establish a connection, and you can think of establishing that connection as looking at the person. With some of my foster children who had a struggle looking at the person because they were autistic, they would put their hands on top of my hands, or I would touch their shoulder, and then they would kind of look at me for a second and kind of look away. They might focus down on the ground. But there is a difference, and you can tell the difference when a person is looking down at the ground but they're listening to you versus I'm not listening, I'm not looking, and I'm not listening. There is a difference. So long as you have discussed what it looks like when they are focusing with you, connecting with you, and listening to you, then you'll be okay. Maybe try to get just a quick look at the person, and then if their eyes wander, don't worry about it, so long as you know that they're still tracking you with their ears. Okay? Because hearing is going to be a higher sense for an autistic person, usually, by and large, than the eye-to-eye connection is going to be. They're going to be able to connect with you audibly easier. If you know they're listening, they can discuss with you about whatever you're talking with them about, then you don't have to worry about it. If they looked at you at first and then their eyes went different, that's fine. But if you need to have a hand holding or a touching of them in some way so that you can feel them and feel to make sure they're okay, and they can feel you, that you're calm and everything's okay, then that's also another great way to have a connection with an autistic person who struggles with eye contact. I want you to know about some success though. So I had one foster daughter who was autistic, and she did struggle with making eye contact we worked at it again and again. And she was able to get herself to a place where she could look at the person for quite a long period of time and focus in on what they were saying. So what she would do is she would look at the person, she would look at my eyes, and then she would look at my mouth, and she would focus on listening to the words coming out of the mouth, but she was still looking at me, even though it wasn't eye to eye all of the time. So she was able to learn that really great social skill of still looking at a person directionally, even though she felt it was hard to focus on what the person was saying if she was maintaining eye contact with them. There are so many videos on this channel related to using teaching self-government with autistic people, so be sure to check out those videos as you're studying this as well. Let's talk about some of the other steps in the 4 basic skills. So in the 4 basic skills, we also have saying okay or disagreeing appropriately. Just because a person struggles with eye contact does not mean that they cannot say okay or ask to disagree appropriately. They can. In fact, an autistic person can actually do all of the steps to all of the 4 basic skills. But we are sensitive about the eye contact step because we do want them to be able to focus on what we're saying and on the teaching moment. And if the eye-to-eye contact makes it so they disconnect or don't focus in, then we've got ourselves a problem, right? So we're just looking at what's going on neurologically for the person with that one step. But with all of the other steps to all of the other skills, dropping the subject, staying calm, they can do all of these things. They have to want to. It can be a little bit more difficult to maintain some self-control because they might have a tendency to want to, act out and not be in control. But those can be habits that any person can have, not just autistic people. Obviously, sometimes autistic people can feel a little bit more stressed when things are not going their way or they're not understood. And so it can be maybe a little bit more difficult to remember the skill of disagreeing appropriately. But this is when the pre-teaching comes in. So I have a book called Parenting a House United. That's this book right here. In this book, I talk about pre-teaching a lot. Pre-teaching is one of the key things that makes a difference between self-government parenting and non-self-government parenting. If you are pre-teaching a person, they are more likely to succeed. So you definitely want to be utilizing that skill with your autistic child. When you pre-teach your child about looking at the person or establishing a connection, because maybe you'll change step number 1 to let's establish a connection. So maybe that's going to be a touch connection or an eye-to-eye connection or a combination of both. You'll establish a connection and then you'll pre-teach them about what they need to do for the rest of the skill. So you can pre-teach step by step to help baby step them along with learning those 4 basic skills. Whatever you do, do not give them a free pass on not learning the 4 basic skills. They will need them to have normal adult lives. If they can follow instructions, accept no answers and criticism, accept consequences, and disagree appropriately. If they can be calm in their communications, they will be able to have good relationships and normal lives. These are adult skills that will actually even take them above what most adults will have. They will be able to lead out. They will feel empowered. In fact, we all know that once they learn something that's true, something that works, they're not going to let you forget it. They're going to probably be telling you, oh, hey, Mom, isn't that just a no answer? And then you'll say, oh, thank you, son. You're right. They will love these skills. They are predictable. They will help them rein themselves in. But navigate through the eye contact thing with patience. Come up with some other connection points, some touch points. if as it were, but then see if you can transition to that eye contact, because that's going to help them in business, and that's going to help them develop good friend relationships and stuff as they get older as well. If you're really wanting to succeed with your autistic child in learning self-government, the very best place for you is the TSG parenting course. So if you go to teachingselfgovernment.com and you go into the store, there is a place where it will say TSG parenting course, or you could do the Parenting University. That would also be a really great help, or maybe even the Parenting Mastery trainings, which are 3-day trainings. Any of those 3 things would be ideal for helping you navigate learning self-government and autism. So I'll see you on the TSG parenting course.